Ask the Mayor. Your chance to ask the Mayor of Weymouth, Bob Hedlund, questions about the town and or anything else that you have concerns about. Ask the Mayor is pre-recorded. And now, Ask the Mayor with Bob Hedlund.
Well, welcome back to another edition of Ask the Mayor, our debut edition of a live show. Everybody, how about a round of applause for Ask the Mayor live at the Whipple Center?
Overflow crowd. This is.
Thousands of people have shown up here today, Bob, I see. And it's,
I heard they were lined up real early for prime seats.
I understand this fellow over here on the left slept out overnight, and we're very grateful for that. I don't know if the camera is going to be able to display this, but a lot of folks wearing Hedlund for President 2020 buttons.
To the questions.
Well, Bob, we have the luxury of some live questions for our first time ever, but before we get into the live audience questions, a question came up as we were walking through the lobby, and it revolved around the fact that the Veterans Office is located here at the Whipple Center, which I think a lot of folks are aware of. But some of the folks at the Veterans Office are wondering, is there any way that we could, or you could create a couple of designated spots for veterans, a couple of veterans parking spaces to make the building a little bit accessible for the veterans who will be coming here to visit? Yes, here.
Well, we would want to consult with our Elder Services Director on that, because it's kind of her house here, you know. But that has never been raised before, so we'll consider that. I think it's a good idea, I guess, but we also are servicing kind of a more advanced age population here, too, that likes parking in proximity to the front door, right? Right? I don't want to displace, so we'll have that discussion with George, our Veteran Service Coordinator, and Karen, whose house we're in, kind of, sort of.
We'll put that in the follow-up in then.
But, you know, one of the things that when I was in the state senate, we got accustomed to, like, a lot of perks, you know. We have nice parking up there under the building. Some of the stuff that we would get, I don't like the concept of us getting something that people that elected us don't get. And when I came in, there was a big sign there, reserved for mayor. And I let's get that sign down. I don't need, I'm capable of walking, you know, so I can fight for a parking spot like everybody else. So we took that down, and it was actually Chief of Staff's idea. They replaced the reserve for mayor sign with a reserve for veteran parking sign. So there is one of those in proximity by the front door at Town Hall, and it does get utilized.
Phenomenal.
Have seen some people duck into it that aren't veterans. But that's worked out nice, so we have that to look to as an example.
Now, I was a colonel in the Salvation Army. Does that qualify me to park in that spot?
No. Salvation Army, by the way, it is Christmas, and Salvation Army is one of the good charities out there that I like to contribute.
We have been remiss. It is the Christmas season. It's a week before Christmas. So Merry Christmas to everybody out there in View Public Land and here today, needless to say. All right, Bob, we're going to go right into the questions from some of the folks who have taken the time to attend. So who would like to be the first person to ask a question of the mayor at Ask the Mayor live at the Whipple Center?
This is Ed Hartnett's dad, by the way.
Oh, no kidding. Hey.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Hello, my name's Drew Horn, and I live near Main and Middle Street. The preface for my question is simply Weymouth and Abington and Rockland have been through the Naval Air Station through two World Wars, and through Southfield, and then now Union Point, and the whole program seems to be in limbo right now. And the question is, does Weymouth have a vision for where it wants to go? And if so, what is that vision?
Well, I would say the three towns have a vision because there's been a long process, as you talk about, Drew. I mean, this whole project started after the BRAC closure in 95, 96. There's been different incarnations, obviously, but there's been a process here. The residents of the three communities went through a process and decided they didn't want commercial air use. They went through a process after that, decided they didn't want the Mills Mega Mall that was proposed. So, somebody just didn't pull something out of a hat for the current model we have. This is really the second incarnation of the mixed-use zoning, as you remember. Came about with the creation of Tri-Town Development Commission. We went through a couple of master developers who didn't pay much attention to the site. Finally, L-Star arrived in, 2014. They explained, actually the previous master developer, Starwood, explained, and L-Star confirmed that plan needed to be tweaked somewhat. I won't get into the details of everything that was tweaked, but things like tying commercial build-out with residential build-out and how you sequence that and everything. They gave the developer more flexibility with the site. Everything sounded pretty good with L-Star, obviously, with their vision for most of the folks involved in this. There were some aspects of that people didn't like. They took the golf course out. There were things that throughout the process changed. Unfortunately, we wound up with a master developer who, the majority owner of the company, who moved from North Carolina to be here to oversee the project, I guess at some point decided, allegedly, to do some crazy things and really put this project off the rails. So it's an interesting time right now. They had internal issues, obviously, when some malfeasance was discovered. The minority partners are trying to get the majority partner out. That's been documented in the papers. We reached a point where our frustration really grew with what was going on internally with that company, and we basically shut the water off. And the water agreement we have, it gives us the power. If we feel they're not hitting benchmarks in the agreement, we shut the water off, which is what we did. Later, just recently, now the the Southfield Redevelopment Authority Board took a vote to serve notice that they were going to be terminated as master developer. That's something they have under their purview. So that's really forced the issue for them. They were trying to get the majority owner, who has the allegations raised against him, to leave the company, and he's refused. That's created the problem. But they see the writing on the wall. He has now signed a term sheet with another potential master developer that has come in. I've met with them. They're vetting the project now. They're doing their due diligence. They actually have, and this is a little bit of news, I guess, and I have a meeting later today with them. But they have, we found first, but they have someone that will come behind them and do the commercial build-out. It wants the exclusive on the commercial build-out, and it's a legitimate company that we have vetted, that we're happy with, and we want to see them invest in the site. That's the commercial part. The new master developer, we're still going through a process, I would say, of doing our due diligence on them and vetting them. While they're vetting L-Star, they have to come in and assume a lot of debt. L-Star spent a lot of money without a lot of progress. Carpenters Union holds a mortgage on the site. There's a lot of moving pieces to that. I'm not as confident that things are going to work out with this new potential master developer the way that the commercial developer that's in the wings has worked out. So that remains to be seen, but they only signed a term sheet a week and a half ago, so we're early in that process. So it's tremendously frustrating and unfortunate the way L-Star went off the rails. Incomprehensible, some of the stuff that they engaged in to really put themselves pretty much out of business. If they can't reach an agreement in the next month or so, or if this period of vetting proves not fruitful for them, they'll probably be in bankruptcy in the next 30 days. So, and we don't want to see them in bankruptcy. I want to see them gone. But if they go into bankruptcy, that's going to push the timeline back for anything to happen another 18 months, which we don't want to have happen. And, people want to fund the schools. People want to fund the programs you do. We've got a lot of financial pressures that would be alleviated with some new commercial growth in that project. And we were banking on that, for instance, with the ProDrive project. And that was a real demoralizing situation when, they notified us that they were going to pull out of that project. So
I take from your answer that it's pretty much still up in the air.
Well, I would say that the model's not up in the air, but who is going to successfully actually develop on that site is up in the air, and who's going to be at the controls.
Well,
because the way that the legislation that was done in 2014 is, you've got more flexibility for the towns, yes, but technically right now, that developer owns the land, and we don't have the ability just to say, hey, we're going to grab the land from you and we're going to play master developer role here as the town. That's not going to happen.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Drew.
It's a great question, Drew. Needless to say, it's on the top of a lot of folks' minds.
Hi, Mayor.
With all these questions, I really don't need a co-host.
So I got to go. And
We might need a musical interlude at some point, so you can stick around.
And I'm a great dancer, too, if the case comes up.
Good morning. I'm Terry Savoy from North Weymouth. I live down on the beach. Been there my entire life. So,
Which beach?
Four River Ave. But my question is concerning Four River Ave as well as Fort Point.
Right.
I know there's been a snag in the seawall that was supposed to be started in October. And no progress. I haven't heard a thing about it, and I was just
On
wondering.
which one? We have two seawall projects.
Well, Four River Ave was supposed to start in October.
Right.
And I was wondering if and when you've heard anything about that, and I wanted to know if how Fort Point was doing, if they're as well on their way to getting something done, because those people are far worse off than we are.
Yeah, and so there's two projects, 4 Point, as you mentioned, and 4 River Ave. And 4 River Ave is a bigger project, and it's more critical, I would say, based on the number of homes affected and condition of the seawall. However, because of participation and cooperation we need from residents, and the ownership situation of Fort Point Road, the residents own, much of Fort Point Road is a private way, and the residents own out past the seawall. So we have some ownership issues there. We don't have those problems on your street. So this town had not really aggressively, shall we say, gone after. You can't fund these seawall projects alone. No town can, whether it's Marshfield, Situate, us. And we're lucky that we have more of a protected bay. So we need the state assistance on this. And the state has a program designed for that. I was very involved in setting that program up. It's the Dam and Seawall Grant and Loan Program. Weymouth is the only town in my old Senate district that never went after any of the grants. So when I became mayor, I said, this is something we need to do. These people, call us on a regular basis. What are you going to do to help us? So we were able to advance the Fort Point project sooner. 4 River Ave. Yeah. 4 River Ave sooner because we didn't have those ownership situations. So we got the grant to do some of the engineering work. Once the engineering work was done, we were able to get a grant to do some of the work. So that's advancing as we finish the engineering work. Fort Point's much more complicated, more expensive. The good news is we did apply for a grant for the design and engineering work. We got that, and we're completing that. But as we do that, the legal issues associated with that, to get easements, we've had there's a gentleman down there that's kind of organized the neighborhood, worked with us. We've gotten cooperation just from everyone, but we have a couple of holdouts that don't want to, one of the residents said flat out that they just don't want a seawall. And we have to have the right to go on their property to do this project. So the neighbors are kind of working that issue out amongst themselves right now and having some discussions, but we need 100% buy-in and sign-off for the easements to do the construction. And that construction, by the way, entails utility work that we will upgrade because the utilities are under the road there. And, they're at risk every time we have that wall breached down there and that flooding down there. So the work isn't just throwing up a seawall on Fort Point. It's fixing the drainage problems down there, the new wall, shore protection. There's probably some revetment work with it, and fixing the road to the right kind of engineering standards. And I think as part of that, we would actually accept the road and it would be a public way, and then we would be responsible for maintaining the road moving forward. Technically, right now, we don't even have to maintain that road for them. It's a private way. So that's where that project stands. The other thing that held up the town, I would say, and was frustrating from the town's perspective, there's a little stretch down there that are considered wetlands, not like ocean wetlands, but marsh wetlands that.
Oh, the lower.
Yes, and that created some permitting issues that held things up for a little bit with the state. But I would say this is the first time really ever that there's momentum to get that wall fixed since it was built. There's been patch jobs done by the town, and technically there's some issue as to whether or not the town's even responsible to patch the wall because it's on private property in some cases. So we're trying to get we're willing to do it. We just need the cooperation from the neighbors, and most of the neighbors have been really good working with us. Most of the neighbors, in fact, have been not only working with us, they're really pushing us.
Is there a timeline to start the Fall River Ave area? I thought that was already scheduled.
Yeah, it is, and I think you're going to see activity down there next year. I know that's on. I don't think there's a delay to it, as you described. If there is, you know something that I don't know. That was on schedule as far as I knew. We were through permitting.
Yeah.
You know, the contract went out for the design work, and that, as far as I know, was on schedule. Okay. And then when we do, by the way, when we do get Fort Point Road, if we get the cooperation and the legal issues resolved, and we have that design work done, we still have to go back to the state and apply for another grant for the funding. But we think we're in a good position for that. We just got to get to that point.
Very good. Thank you.
More than you wanted to know about seawalls, probably, right?
Okay. Mayor Headland, I'm Judy Briggs. I have a personal question.
No, I'm busy Saturday night.
He's single.
Have you ever considered finding a new wife or finding one in the senior center with all the good cooks and things here?
I like this question.
It's turning his face
One of you
red.
girls is going to get a rose tonight. Oh, we already have a winner. Robert.
I actually didn't hear the second part of that. Something about.
We'd like you to consider marrying a senior here. We've got plenty
There's a
of
lot of single
all
ladies
bedroom.
around the senior center, right? Drew told me that's why he's a regular here, you know?
Well, it's like in the old days when the countries used to have arranged marriages to form
Right.
stronger relationships. North Weymouth is at risk of seceding, Bob, right? If you married a North Weymouth girl, you could bring the town whole again.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. I was going to make a self-depreciating joke. I realize this is being broadcast out throughout the town. I probably will hold off on that.
We do have a kissing booth set out up front when that gets a quarter a kiss.
Thinking back, you said a new wife?
Well, a wife.
I haven't even had an original wife, never mind a new one. Kind of getting old and stuck in my ways. Jim felt sorry for me probably back around 1998, 99, and he tried to set me up with his cousin.
He did date my cousin, as a matter of fact. And they haven't talked since '98. That's not true. He's a gentleman. I would recommend a date as a cameo. Bob, maybe I could chauffeur on the first date anyway. He's a catch. Let's call it what it is, ladies. He's quite a catch. And the way we do it in North Weymouth, we throw the hook out, right?
I'll tell you what, if I do find a wife at the senior center, all right, we'll have the ceremony here. Karen can get a one-day dispensation to be the justice of the peace, and Jim Melody will sing the song that, you know, the bride marches down the aisle to. All right.
The fact of the matter is, Bob, we both actually qualify for membership at the senior center.
True.
What, 55? 60. The good times are
Fake
coming.
news by the Citizen Inquisitor. All right, next question, Jim. Keep the show moving, Jim.
Well, our next question is supposed to be from another attendee. I don't think it's going to top the last one. But
If I do meet, I think Jim would like this. If I do meet, you know, a potential suitor at the senior center, our first date could be Great Hill, Jim.
where you'll find me.
The hills are alive with the sound of music.
Oh, my name is Kay Walsh. Excuse me. And my question, or it's actually a request. And my request is to have the restroom, the ladies' restroom, refurbished. The toilets are made for first graders, and and remember, you have to be 60 to come here. So you try being 60 and get down to those toilets. It's pretty tough.
You know, they do rent the gym out for kids' birthday parties here. Did you know that?
Well, we don't care about the kids. And, but that is, it's so dated. The toilets, they're, like I said, very low. The water just drips and it's cold. I mean, seriously, it just drips. And you're there like this, you know. And the, what else? There was, I don't know, but it's a big mess. It's terrible. And
So this is a good question because, you know, the
it
great
can't
part,
even be cleaned.
the great part about this show is I often, and by the way, when we talked about the show and Mary introduction, you know, we really don't rehearse the show. I walk in and Jim has the questions and we just go with it. And the great part about that is I often learn something I didn't know. And having never been in the women's room here, now I have learned something new. That there's an issue with the toilet height at the Whipple Center. So I get that. I think we've done a fairly good job in addressing a lot of stuff here and improving the
Exactly.
place because, you know, I remember coming here, the debate we had right before the election in late 15, and the condition of this parking lot was ridiculous. And I was, how is someone not fallen and broken a hip? It looked like the Air Force strafed the parking lot with bunker buster bombs. And, you know, we talked to Karen and done a lot of work here. And I'm going to be able to pass the buck on this because if memory serves me correct, the department heads submit a capital needs list every year to us. And I don't recall seeing the woman's room on the capital needs list of the Whipple Center. She had other things like the back door that was all boarded up. The parking lot obviously is something that I wanted to see happen. Issues with HVAC, the floor, and the which I saw people dancing on today, and it looks pretty good in the gym. The computer room, this room. Saw a lot of needs that we've addressed, but she's never raised the issue of the bathroom. So guess where you might start
Excuse
this
me.
discussion.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
Almost all the work, the physical work, has been done by Karen, our director, and our assistant director, Denise. They're the ones that did all the work. And I mean, the town had to do the plumbing, or wasn't no plumbing.
Well, actually, the taxpayers of Weymouth actually did most of the work. There's a couple grants we got, but it was actually the taxpayers of Weymouth. But
Two ladies are awesome.
I never knew, Karen, that you were an expert on flooring and HVAC. You did the actual work. I'm good.
I haven't acquired the plumbing skills yet.
Excuse me, if you go into our library, they put the floor down.
Oh, okay. Like I said, I learned something new at every show. But we will. Maybe Karen can escort me, and we'll take a look at the bathrooms before I leave. That would be helpful. All right.
And maybe you can get her a monkey wrench for Christmas, and she can. Who knows what the future holds, Karen? Do we have other questions from the audience before we move
this
on
the
to
silent
submitted
side?
questions?
Oh, someone's got a hand up over here. Go ahead.
So one more for
Cheryl, go to the mic so the folks can hear on TV.
I'm Cheryl Mosier from North Weymouth. The question is, dear Dunkin' Donuts, second Dunkin' Donuts, U-Haul, the light goes, says walk, I walk half of it and then it turns. And it should be, half the people can't even make it across the street.
It's not a walk signal, it's a run signal.
Whatever.
So you're talking down at C and Bridge? Neck and Bridge, I mean.
Yeah.
Okay, so the state controls that light, and actually I know more about that stupid light than I really want to, because we've actually gotten questions on this show before on why you can't do right on red, and I think, did they temporarily change that as part of the mitigation for the traffic mitigation, the few weeks when they had to drop the lanes for the final bridge work on the new Fall River Bridge. So they made a lot of changes. That intersection, the C and Bridge, or the North and Bridge intersection, believe it or not, down at Church Street, Weymouth Heights, they made some changes there. They did things in Quincy, and they readjusted timing. They eliminated, certain right on red restrictions and things like that for that week. And then for the few weeks on the final work on the bridge. When that was done, they made an evaluation, and they actually consulted our traffic engineering department. And some of those changes, they found out, were actually good for the traffic, and they decided to leave those changes in place. For instance, up at Quincy, I'm trying to think of that crazy side street by the fire station.
I know what you're talking about.
They made some changes there and left them permanent. All these were supposed to be temporary. Changes they made at Church Street, we felt, although I just had a North Weymouth resident squawking about it recently, but we left those in place. The changes that were done at Neck and Bridge, they left in place. We had a lot of inquiries from people that liked the fact that you could take a ride on red at the Dunkin' Donuts, and wanted that to stay. We checked with Mass DOT, and they said absolutely not. There's a complete prohibition on it, and I can't remember the specifics of the reason. It was either or both. It had something to do with in their regs or in statute, the proximity to the bus stop, I think, was the issue. So when they have a T stop that's within much of a distance to an intersection like that, they don't allow it. And I thought it was going to be the school or the church, but DOT, I believe, told us it was because of the bus stop there, and they would not even consider that. So that's been raised before. But in terms of the timing, we'll check on that. That's easy for us to have our traffic engineer check that. If it's not giving people a sufficient amount of time to cross, obviously we want to
Doesn't.
fix that. But the people that wanted to go right on red will be very unhappy when they hear this request, Cheryl. People don't like to stop. I was at a down at Walmart yesterday, the day before, and I must have counted at least 6 cars that ran the light when the pedestrian crossing signal was on. I mean, they don't even want to stop for a pedestrian.
I seen that all the time.
Yeah, so
And
I know you.
I go like that to them.
Well, that's being very polite. That's being very diplomatic.
He uses a different finger.
I believe I could do that too.
No, but, I mean, we want to encourage people to walk, and I do see her walking.
I
down
walk
Bridge Street
everywhere.
all the
Everyone
time.
sees me.
Right. I see you all the time.
That's why I'm in
walking down
good
Bridge
shape.
Street. Right. So obviously we want to make it accommodating for pedestrians, despite the frustration motorists have with traffic.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
All right.
Well, Bob, it looks like we're coming to the conclusion of our inaugural live episode.
Let me ask a question. Do we have more questions?
We have a ton of questions.
So do you want to go over and we can work it into a subsequent show? Because I have some time if you want to take them. Oh, okay.
Mayor, before we go, do we have time to give the mayor a Christmas gift on the Christmas show? Bob, well, it's the Christmas show.
No, we're out of time. We're going to do another segment now.
Who's the producer of the show? Me. You've been overridden again. The grant's at risk. Well, then we're going to say thank you to everybody. Really appreciate everybody coming out.
We have a gimmick, real quick. We have a gimmick. Every show we close with an old reference to an old show that used to run on WSBK TV 38 and follow Ask the Manager, so we need a recommendation. Stay tuned for... What?
Patty Duke. Oh, bravo.
That was before my time.
I hear she's single.
That was only black and white episodes, I think, right? All right, so stay tuned for.
Stay tuned for the Patty Duke Show.
See you next episode, which will be in about 2 minutes.
If you have a question, please email the mayor at askmayorbob@gmail.com. That's askmayorbob@gmail.com. Maybe your question will be answered on the next episode of Ask the Mayor.
Our patty loves to rock and roll, a hot dog makes